The jar of blackberry jam felt warm in my hands as I walked up the path to the farmhouse, a little gift for my daughter. June didn't know I was coming. She used to love surprises. The air changed the moment I stepped inside. The kitchen was a storm of noise and other people's lives. A toddler wailed in the next room. The smell of cheap bacon burned on the stove. Coats were flung over the chairs I'd helped her pick out. And there was June, standing by the sink, her hair pulled back too tightly, her eyes puffy. She didn't smile. She just looked at me, a ghost of the girl I raised flickering behind her gaze. That's when I heard it. A sharp, unfamiliar voice cut through the grease-smell air. "Get your mother out of my kitchen." A woman I recognized from a single photo, Diane, my son-in-law Leo's mother, was flipping pancakes at June's stove. She didn't even look up. June flushed crimson, then went pale. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. "It's fine," I said, my calm, steady tone I'd perfected over 30 years of teaching, the one that could disarm a playground brawl. I set the jam jar on the crowded counter. No one thanked me. A man, one of Leo's brothers, I assumed, brushed past me with a beer. No eye contact, no greeting. I stepped back into the hallway, my heart beat a steady, loud drum in my ears. The walls told their own story. The photos were all of children I didn't know, a family I didn't belong to. Only one small frame held a picture of June and Leo. She followed me, wringing her hands on her jeans. "Sorry, Mom. They've been here a while." "How long is a while?" She didn't answer. Her eyes just darted toward the kitchen and then to the closed door of the guest bedroom, a sliver of light glowing beneath it. My stomach turned to stone. 6 months ago, I'd stood on this very porch and handed her the deed to this house. It was to be her fresh start, hers alone. The loan was in my name, but the property was June's, no strings. "This is yours," I told her, pressing the papers into her hands. "You choose what it becomes." I had meant it as an anchor. Now I feared it had become her cage. That night, I slept in the makeshift bed in the den. I woke to the sound of Diane's slippers shuffling past. June was curled on the living room couch, a blanket too small covering her shoulders. The door to the master bedroom, June's bedroom, was firmly shut. In the morning, the rituals of erasure continued. June brewed coffee. Diane took the first cup without a word. Leo never emerged. "I can make breakfast," I offered. "I already made grits," June said quickly, a flicker of fear in her eyes, as if my using her pans would be a transgression. I sat and watched them eat at her table. Diane chattered about a neighbor's baby shower. June nodded, her eyes distant. When she reached for the sugar and spilled it, no one moved to help her clean it up. She knelt and gathered the granules with her bare hands, a silent servant in her own home. Later, I followed her to the shed she'd once claimed as her art studio. The space where her canvases and dreams had lived was now a storage unit for other people's things. Her easel was folded and shoved behind crates of soda. A plastic tub with her faded initials sat under a layer of dust. "I haven't painted in a while," she murmured, not meeting my eyes. "It started with a funeral," she'd told me earlier. Leo's uncle passed. The family needed a place to gather. Just for a week, they'd said. That was 10 weeks ago. The folding cot appeared, then the coolers. Diane temporarily took the master bedroom to help Leo, who was grieving so hard. Suitcases multiplied. Someone started doing laundry, only their own. June's clothes sat in a lonely pile by the hall. "Leo says it won't be much longer," June whispered as we weeded the garden, her hands raw with fresh blisters. Her good gardening gloves, she told me, had been declared moldy and thrown out by Diane. The cruelty wasn't in shouts, it was in the quiet, steady takeover of space, of agency, of breath. The final small cruelty happened when I saw Diane at the trash can, holding June's favorite mug, the pale blue one with the hairline crack, the one I'd given her when she left for college. "That old thing," Diane scoffed, "ugly and chipped." She dropped it in the bin. I waited until she left, then I reached in, retrieved the mug, and wrapped it carefully in a dish towel. It wasn't about the ceramic, it was about the memory, the history, the right to keep what was yours. That night I found June silently crying on the couch, the sound off on the TV, her body curled into itself like a question mark. I didn't comfort her, not yet. The time for comfort was over. It was time for a reckoning. The next morning, I drove to the county clerk's office before it opened. My hands were steady as I requested the official property deed for 187 Willow Creek Road. Owner, June Elizabeth Vance. I returned to a house pulsing with hostile energy. Diane was lecturing someone about a water spot. Raucous laughter echoed from the hall. I walked through it all, a quiet knife through the noise, and placed the single sheet of paper on the kitchen table. I smoothed its edges flat. The chatter died. "June owns this house," I said, my voice clear and carrying. I tapped the paper. "This is the deed. I helped purchase it, but her name is the only one on it. Legally and in every way that matters, this is her property." Leo looked up from his phone, a scowl deepening. "What is this?" "A boundary," I said, meeting his eyes. "You have until noon tomorrow to pack your things and leave." Diane's mouth fell open, a perfect O of outrage. "You can't be serious. We're family." "You are guests," I corrected, my tone icy and final, "and your stay is over. This is not a discussion." A seismic silence filled the room. All eyes turned to June, who stood frozen in the doorway. She looked from the deed to my face to Leo's stunned anger. Something shifted behind her eyes. A spark, long buried, fought its way to the surface. She didn't say a word, but she walked across the room and stood beside me, her shoulder brushing mine. It was answer enough. The exodus was not graceful. It was a tempest of slammed doors, muttered curses, and glaring indignation. Diane's final shot was aimed at me. "You've ruined this family." "No," I said quietly, holding the door open. "You just finally met the part of it that knows how to say no." Leo was the last to leave. He lingered, a monument to silent grievance, packing his truck with a heavy, performative sadness. He looked at June, waiting for her to recant, to beg him to stay. She was washing a mug at the sink, her back straight. "Your family drowned me out," she said, so softly I almost missed it. "I'm just choosing to breathe again." He left without another word. The silence he left behind wasn't empty. It was full of potential. We began the reclamation that very afternoon. We stripped beds that smelled of strangers, bagged up forgotten toiletries, and opened every window, letting the clean, cold air scour the house of their presence. In a closet corner, June found her old sketch pad. She touched the charcoal-smudged pages like they were holy text. The next day, she repainted the pantry a bold sunset terracotta because no one else would choose it, she said, a real smile touching her lips for the first time in months. I placed the rescued blue mug on the windowsill. She saw it, paused, and gave a single firm nod. Weeks turned into months. The shed became a studio again. The smell of turpentine and clay replaced the odor of neglect. June started teaching weekend art classes. The sound of women's laughter became the house's new music. One afternoon, we planted tulip bulbs along the driveway. "It's late for them," I mentioned. "They'll hold," she said, pressing a bulb into the cold earth. "If I plant them now, they'll bloom when the weather's better." She paused, soil on her hands. "Maybe so will I." Today, the farmhouse is no longer a fortress under siege. It is a home. I still stay in the guest room, which June has painted a warm butter yellow. She calls it Mom's Wing. This morning, over breakfast, she reached for the windowsill, took down the chipped blue mug, and turned it over in her hands. "It's not perfect," she said, her voice strong and clear, "but it still holds things perfectly well." She placed it proudly on the open shelf between a vibrant pot she'd thrown herself and a bowl of fresh eggs, a testament not to what was broken, but to what was kept, to what was saved. We ate our breakfast in a peaceful, sunlit quiet. The house, once heavy with the weight of others, now felt light. It felt like hers, and in being hers, it had finally become a home.